Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
That time of year, we're officially on notice. Any second now.
Prospect profiles?
No. I was actually thinking about that. I was like, thank God. Like, as this team gets better, we just have to focus on that less and less. And like, there were moments this year. I think in November, people were like, hey, you're going to get started on those earlier than 2026. So I'm glad for that, the huge December they had. But no, we're on notice for a trade dropping with the Red Wings.
I was going to say, we already did our Gavin McKenna prospect profiles. Like, he broke a man's jaw. He's probably going number one.
Yeah, and then, 8 points, and then hit the Conor McGregor celly in a game? Like,
yeah.
His draft stock was revived big that day.
Big time.
But no, we're not talking about Gavin McKenna. We're talking about Tyler Myers as of right now. Potentially some other guys. It could also be a different Canuck or, a Robert Thomas or someone else. But no, right now it's Tyler Myers is the big one. Trade season's funny. I'm not going to sit here and complain that Detroit's at the center of everything, but it is much the same way Red Wings fans have been hurt before when it comes to playoff pushes. They've been hurt before a little bit when it comes to trade rumors and trade season.
We've been hurt by the draft lottery. We'll be hurt by the trade deadline. We're just moving our pain from one area to the next.
We're a little bit masochistic.
Yes.
I guess that's what we get for 25 years of unparalleled success.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, folks. Here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, NHL trade rumors, and how Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings are involved, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be talking to you about the two Red Wings games that have happened. A really fun one against the Ottawa Senators, and then a really not fun one against the Carolina Hurricanes, as we all predicted. Takeaways from those games, comments from Todd McLellan, and more. And then we're going to jump into the trade rumors that the Red Wings are at the center of, everyone from Tyler Myers to Elias Petterson to Robert Thomas to Vincent Trocheck, Adam Fox, and more. And then we'll get into whatever else we can from NHL news before we jump into overtime. Very quickly, we are 20 days away from Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA. Saturday, March 21st, it's the game against Boston. wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings to get your tickets. They are running out fast. Your tickets get you not only access to obviously the Red Wings versus Bruins game at a discounted rate, you also get into the pregame live recording of the Winged Wheel Podcast at Little Caesars Arena featuring Ken Daniels, lead announcer of the Detroit Red Wings, and other special guests. You also get a special edition, limited run Detroit Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast co-branded hat. It's got the Centennial logo on the front, our logo on the side. It's the red and cream colorway for the Centennial season. It's a sweet hat. We can't sell them. It's officially licensed Red Wings merch, and so the only way that you can get them is from going to that event with your ticket. So again, wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings, or go to the link in the description. And most importantly, every ticket purchased represents a donation to the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Also, if you want to help support the show, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. You get access to our bonus overtime episodes, which record right after these main ones, our Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We give away 2 tickets to every Red Wings home game going directly to our patrons. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Dylan Larkin played the same game twice in a row. From the gold medal game of the Olympics to the first game back with the Red Wings. He played a Canadian team who largely outplayed his team. His American goalie saved their butts, got them to overtime, and then they won in dramatic fashion while he was on the ice in overtime. Big couple of games for Dylan.
It's good to see that he came back with some energy. Like, there's a solid chance that his bloodstream was 92% alcohol for that game.
Yeah.
So I was very pleasantly surprised to see the juice that he had that game, and that speed burst in overtime was excellent. So a lot of Fords didn't show up, but he did. So credit to him.
And Brady Tkachuk, for the last time of the season, got to meet his sleep paralysis demon, Simon Edvinsson. That was a fun, I like how angry and almost like ridiculous blood feud coated the whole Red Wings versus Senators rivalry has become. Those games are just so ridiculous. Like Brady Tkachuk turning a good situation into one that hurt his team because he just completely like blew his lid. And Simon Edvinsson was absolutely at fault. It's fun to watch. I really miss when the Red Wings were good enough for this to be a thing.
Well, it's was a tough look for Dylan Cozens as well.
Yeah.
Had to stand up for his captain, Brady Tkachuk, who high-sticked himself in the face and then gets his lunch fed to him by noted goons Simon Edvinsson.
You're starting to see that MMA training come out a little bit.
Yeah, they gotta read the game notes. They gotta stop trying to fight Simon Edvinsson.
And I think a lot of Sens fans missed the point online after where there was a big outcry. Oh, that was a dirty hit. It was interference. Larkin's tattling on his buddy after. And I don't think there's a Red Wings fan out there who disagreed with those Sens fans. We said, no, that's 1,000% what happened. It was hilarious. I hope he does it again.
It's Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, it's Brady Tkachuk. Bad things should happen to that guy, and the Red Wings are making sure they do, legal or not.
This is him reaping what he's sowing.
Exactly.
The sowing part was a blast for him. The reaping, he's not really having a fun time with. Let's start from the top of the game. So the Red Wings thought they opened scoring in this game, and after a challenge, it was successfully overturned by the Ottawa Senators because Elmer Soderblom just stupidly went offside, did not need to. He's got more leg than pretty much anyone else in that arena and couldn't stay onside. That was a rough look. He had himself a tough game, Elmer Soderblom, as evidenced by coming out of the lineup the next game for Dominic Schein. But that was tough. Rasmussen thought he opened scoring. Would have been a much-needed goal for him, but instead, it was back to 0-0, and the Red Wings weren't looking great. I don't really think they looked amazing all game. Ottawa largely carried play, I feel like. Brady Tkachuk ends up opening scoring on a power play. John Gibson had already made a ton of huge saves to that point, but the puck kind of ricocheted back out to the very top of the slot. Tkachuk threw it on net. It looked like it surprised Gibson. They get one through. It was up 1-0 for Ottawa at first intermission. And then Dylan Larkin, the opposing captain, also Team USA teammate, does the same thing. Power play goal to match Brady Tkachuk's, ties it 1-1. It was Larkin from Raymond and Seider. And at that point, there was John Gibson was going to dictate how that game went. So before we get into the whole Edvinsson-Tkachuk kerfuffle, I think we'll recap like how the score ended and everything, and then we'll get into the Edvinsson-Tkachuk and then Cozens scrap. So the game ends up tied through regulation. Despite the push from Ottawa, they outshot Detroit, not by a ton, it was 27-20, but still, I think they were the better team that game. And then in overtime, Lucas Raymond makes a great play to get the puck up down the ice off the boards to Dylan Larkin, who, like Brad said, had that speed burst, goes in and tucks it in on Ullmark, and the Red Wings get the victory on the backs of John Gibson, but 2 Dylan Larkin goals.
Yeah, it was a great result. And obviously, we're happy to see that John Gibson picked up right where he left off, because I think we talked about it in one of the last episodes about how the season hinges on him, right? We know the Red Wings' strengths. We know the Red Wings' warts. But a goaltender can mask everything. See Connor Hellebuck. And Gibson did a lot of that. Because, again, not that the Red Wings played horrible this game. So this isn't a game where you want to sound the panic alarm or overreact. But a lot of the concerns we've seen going into the break were evident this game. They were struggling mightily to have any sustained offense. Their transition game left a lot to be desired. They were okay defensively, but they had their breakdowns where Gibson had to bail them out. So it wasn't the most inspiring game coming out of the break, given how they went into the break. But the 2 key players we talked about coming out of the break who needed to be good for the Red Wings, Gibson and Larkin, they were responsible for the win. So if you're going to take any silver linings from that game, those were 2 pretty big silver linings.
Didn't expect the Red Wings to look all that great, especially when you got to play a team like Ottawa, who's a very, very strong 5-on-5 team that's just kneecapped by historically bad goaltending, and the Red Wings are not a fantastic 5-on-5 team. So it looked the way I thought it would, where I was disappointed or not surprised, but yeah, I'll say I was disappointed that the players who need a kick in the ass and they get a 2-week break or however many day break it was to sort of hit the reset button and get themselves together for this final push, were still as bad as day one of the break.
Oh yeah, it looked like no one missed a beat and that everyone was still very much off beat.
You could have just time traveled from the last game before the break to the Sens game, and I would say it was a carbon copy. So obviously we're going to have the same conversation and about the next game, but it's disappointing that the supporting cast continues to look exactly as they did, and I thought for sure the break would be time to either recoup, get your rest, or work on things and come back with your butts on fire ready to go.
Now, the silver lining is, and we said this last episode, of they're in just results mode right now. Like, obviously, you need the process to be better, but you've banked so many points, and you only need so many among the final 24 games before these two of the season. So just get results and scrape them out however you can. So getting those 2 points, especially facing Carolina 2 nights later, that was huge. So a positive night for the Red Wings overall, but that's thanks to John Gibson and then Dylan Larkin, tying that bow. But you can't ignore, like you both have very clearly laid out, that team is still struggling the same way they were headed into the break. Now, the fun part before we talk about Carolina, Simon Edvinsson, first game back and does it with a bang. Basically, the puck is turning around out of the Senator zone, gets flipped into the air. Everyone's kind of looking up and following it in general. Brady Tkachuk turns to go out of the zone, and there's no point in mincing words here. Simon Edvinsson just steps up, and blatantly interferes with him. Ends up hurting him. Initially, there's some thought of, did he catch him up high? Upon replay, no, he caught him. It was a clean interference. He didn't completely destroy him with an elbow or hit him up high or anything. Just normal shoulder to chest interference. Still not good in terms of the rules. Definitely broke a rule. But what happened was Brady's stick, because he wasn't anticipating a behemoth just turning into a boulder in front of him, his stick ends up hitting himself in the face. They initially called it a major just for the purpose of being able to review it. And then after review, they said there's no major on the play because Tkachuk's own stick hit him in the face. The referee announcing that in the arena was incredible. Right after the hit, like Brad said, Cozens came in and stood up for his captain. The right thing to do, honestly, hats off to Cozens, did what you're meant to do there. Thoroughly outmatched that poor guy. He threw one punch, and
he's a pretty tough kid too, but yeah.
It's just
when you're punching up, it's hard.
Physics at that point. And then Simon with one hand is moving his body, with the other hand is just throwing. Those looked heavy. Those had weight behind them. He connected, was it 1-2, and then Cozens was turned completely 180 degrees from how he was meant to be, and you could see the panic on his face. And then Simon ended up getting the takedown. Stood up a Tkachuk, won a fight against an Ottawa Senator. Not a bad few minutes for him.
We're so back.
And he goes to the box, and then through all of this, they come out, they announce it's not a major. The refs are at the benches explaining to the coaches why it wasn't a major and what the penalties are going to be, because Cozens got the extra for instigating. And it was... The people had turned around and noticed beforehand, but Dylan Larkin, Brady Tkachuk's Team USA teammate, was one of the guys to flag down the referee to say, hey, look what Brady's doing. Brady was standing in front of the Red Wings box, jawing at Simon Edvinsson, saying, what was he saying? Just wait till you get out, or I'm going to get you, you're done, or basically telling him, you're mine once you're out of there. And he was going, he blew his lid. There's no point in doing all that. Earns himself a 10-minute misconduct. So takes himself out of the play, one of their most important players, for 10 minutes of the game. And then it's just after that, obviously nothing else happened, because I'm sure Travis Green said to Brady in the dressing room at second intermission, 10 minutes in the box was enough, bud. You're not fighting anyone else. We can't lose you for 5 more minutes in the third period. And then they were going at each other in the box too. They just kept jawing. It was just hilarious to watch.
Do you think Brady was trying to recruit, since Simon's so tall, he's trying to recruit him to his Monstars basketball team?
I think Brady looks like one of the Monstars.
He does. He looks like the Sean Bradley Monstar. It was the exact joke I was making. That was 1,000%.
Someone please superimpose that. I'm begging you. That's like that's the give and take. That's the double-edged sword of having Brady. I think Matthew's a little bit better at the game, the kind of the Tkachuk game, and
he's also better at the game of hockey as well.
Brady, but the thing is, Brady's a plenty good hockey player. He didn't need to take himself out of that game. Like he completely sees red. Matthew, Matthew's better at it because he pisses you off more as an opposing fan. You can get Brady to tilt. Simon had to have been satisfied with himself. He talked about going to see, what was it? He wanted to go see a Pistons game with JVR, and he was talking about the bad boy Pistons and wanted to bring a little bit of that to the Red Wings. I'm like, hell yeah, dude.
Good.
He must have listened to the Patreon exclusives.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I can be that psycho.
Perfect. This is what we want.
He's big enough. He can do it. And again, the whole play, there's nothing from a hockey standpoint redeeming about that play. It was a penalty. Obviously, Cozens coming in and getting the instigator helped the overall situation, but like that's a play where you're putting your team shorthanded and it's a dirty hit to an unsuspecting opponent. I understand all that. It's a great play. 10 out of 10. Do it. Keep doing it. This is how you not fail the punk test.
It also helps that it's against Brady Tkachuk.
Yes.
There's
1,000%.
like 10 guys in the league that I'm like, you can do this against, and I will be pleasantly on your side.
Yeah. You should infringe the rules to cause that player some kind of annoyance or discomfort in this game of hockey.
Yeah, we're not
Absolutely.
saying go punch him in the head or throw an elbow to his jaw. Nothing that could cause CTE to him, we'll say. But when you are going to get under his skin like that, to the point where he gets so irate, he takes a 10-minute, and he was off his game the rest of the game. Like, sometimes the penalty is worth it for the bigger picture.
And we didn't even talk about fellow goon John Gibson taking down Ridley Gregg, who backed up into him in his crease, was getting the goalie interference penalty. And then John Gibson, who has shown a few times this season that he doesn't care at all. He's like, if you get in my space, I'm throwing a blocker or a glove at you. Just grabs Greg and takes him down.
I don't know if that was a poor attempt at a DDT or if he was just trying.
He's just trying something new, you know?
Yeah.
It's the year of the goalie fight, so maybe he's wanting to get his name out there that he's a willing combatant.
In your words, Evan, we're so back.
We are so back.
That's what we need to do as a hockey nation. That's what we need to do. So I'm going to read out some positive things because the Carolina recap is going to suck. After that game, I think this was Logan Reaver who tweeted out these stats. John Gibson has a 19-5-1 record with a 2.06 goals against average, a 925 save percentage, and 4 shutouts in his last 25 games. And he has a 12-5 record with a 1.89 goals against average and a 937 save percentage and 4 shutouts in 17 road games. You have a goalie putting up 937 on the road. That is unbelievable.
It's impressive because obviously when you're on the road, you're not getting favorable matchups. You're seeing the other team's best players against literally anyone on Detroit in the bottom 6, which is a horrifying sight, I'm sure, for a goalie. And he's doing it with the Red Wings defense, which is porous at best, it seems like lately. So yeah, it's keeping the Red Wings afloat in the Atlantic.
Speaking of the Atlantic, you'll like this one because you always talk about how the Red Wings need to perform well against the Atlantic. This was Brock Sagan, credit to him, who tweeted these, but 11-4-2 with a .706 save percentage against the Atlantic, and just really, really excellent records across the board. 4-0 against Toronto, 3-0 against Ottawa. So far no losses against those two teams. Florida, they're 1-0. Boston 1-1-1. Tampa Bay 1-1, Montreal 1-1, and then Buffalo 1-1. Buffalo's the only Atlantic team that they haven't beat yet, but they've taken points off of everyone. So, it's still a tight race, and it doesn't mean they have separation. Like, their margins are extremely thin, especially after the Carolina loss, but they are extremely well positioned in terms of what they've banked against their own division. And I really love what Todd McLellan said as well. Like before the game, it can't just be Dylan with regards to who has to show up and turn it on for this team to kind of turn around their poor play and get some results. He said it can't just be Dylan, but it has to be Dylan. And that, what we've been saying, like, yeah, this team's been performing well, but if they are going to make a serious move and cement themselves and be a scary proposition for an opponent in the playoffs, Dylan has to be one of the leaders in that. And credit to him. Came back, would have had every excuse in the world, or a lot of people wouldn't have raised an eyebrow if he had a stinker coming back, but 2 goals, including the game winner in Ottawa, was sick. And then you have Carolina. That game, we all knew what it was going to be against Carolina going into this game. Like, think of everything Evan just said in terms of the home team having the matchups, and then think of how the games have gone against Carolina over the past, I don't even want to say this season, the past however many years. Not great.
How many points does Shane Gostisbehere have against the Red Wings? 50?
Probably, yeah, in the last 2 games, it feels like. Every time they play him, it's like it's a personal reminder of how it was a mistake to let him go.
He is on a revenge tour every time they play the Detroit Red Wings.
They went up by 3 goals twice in this game. 2-0 in the first period. In the second period, they opened with another goal to make it 3-0, and you're like, okay, you needed to come out strong, and you ceded a goal at the start of the period. You're now down 3. And it wasn't looking good. There was just a ton of, unforced errors that Carolina was turning around the other way. There was a bunch of forced errors that Carolina was turning around the other way. They weren't really getting saves from Talbot. There was a couple moments here and there, but by and large, he wasn't doing the Gibson and, electrifying the Red Wings by coming up huge. Things were getting past him, and Carolina was converting. All looked kind of lost until the last 90 seconds of the second period. Simon Edvinsson, who had a really bad first period, has some redemption. Assist to DeBrincat and Larkin, but Simon Edvinsson steps in and perfectly placed shot, snipes one home, puts Detroit on the board. You're like, okay, Detroit's going to go into the second intermission, at least on the board. They're not completely dead. Then Patrick Kane, after a really great offensive zone play by Moritz Seider, nice drop pass for Patrick Kane, leaves him the puck. Patrick Kane comes in and scores his first in 15 games, and you could see the sigh of relief on his face. I think he might have said finally. He looked just like the burden was off of him. And that looked like a bigger burden than him scoring 500. So goal 501, which made him pass Lanny McDonald on the all-time goals list, brought Detroit within 1 goal, and it was scored, 50 seconds after the Edvinsson goal. And they threatened after that as well. So heading into the second intermission, Detroit's within 1, and you're like, okay, against all odds, they have life. We've seen this season. All they have to do is win a period, and then you can scrape at least a point from this. Yeah, Shane Gostisbehere scored at the start of the third period, and then Jackson Blake scored, and then they were up 3 again, and it ended up being a 5-2 finish, and it was a terrible game for the Red Wings overall. Outside of 90 seconds of play, it was what we expected. Carolina dominated them. They controlled the play. They dictated how things were going to go. They capitalized on every error, forced or unforced, and you saw a lot of really rough games for the Red Wings. ASP, Casper, Finney, guys looked terrible up and down the lineup, or invisible at best.
If you ever trick yourselves into thinking the Red Wings are a fast or a high-paced hockey team, when they play the Carolina Hurricanes, it reminds you they are very much not that.
It's easily their worst matchup in the entire league, I have to say.
Stylistically, everything about it, talent-wise, yep. They played Colorado better this year.
I would rather play the Tampa Bay Lightning in a 7-game series than the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yes. First round. Once we get to the third round, I'm totally comfortable playing Carolina.
That's fine. Yeah, you'll accept that.
I'll take third round Carolina Hurricanes, but I won't take first round Carolina Hurricanes.
It doesn't feel like a lot has changed for the Red Wings this season in terms of when they have these games, why they happened. Now, I'm not lighting the beacons to say, oh, this is the sign that the Red Wings are going to fall out of the playoff race. It's Carolina. I really can't emphasize enough. This team was designed in a lab to make the Red Wings feel pain. But it is still, you can't ignore it. The warts are the warts, and Carolina just does a really good job exposing them. Come playoff time, if the Red Wings lock this thing in, then other teams are going to they're going to watch tape. They're going to see how have the Red Wings struggled in the past, what has succeeded against them. They're going to play Carolina's kind of game, and they're going to have to figure it out, or we're going to talk about it, bring in new personnel to do so. Todd McLellan had a really poignant quote after the game. He said, "We have some guys right now that are just jerseys, eating up minutes and not doing much else." One, that guy's a poet. That's Shakespeare right there. Calling someone a jersey is not something I've ever done. Immediately going into the lexicon, like immediately part of my personal vocabulary.
We at least call them, they're just guys. He's demeaning them even for
they're inanimate objects.
Yeah, to him. They're people to us still. To him, they are just
Ralph
things.
Fiennes would be proud.
Yes.
He has taken the cardio game insult to a whole new level. And he has to be like exasperated to a degree, because Todd McLellan has come into this team, and between him and his staff, they've gotten a lot out of guys who looked otherwise trending in the wrong direction. But there's other guys who maybe for small moments peak, but by and large just revert back to who they are. And there's a really strong argument to be made, which I am making, that if they haven't figured it out by now, they're not going to. And if someone is just a jersey in Todd McLellan's eyes, I like what he's done with this team. I like the amount of accountability he's brought to this team's best players, their players down the lineup. I trust his assessment. If someone's just a jersey to him and they're not doing anything, see you later.
Well, I think your theory that you mentioned off air before we started recording is probably the most accurate description of what he's doing, which is him giving a subtle message to the GM going, I've done everything I can. I can't fix these guys.
I don't think that's unknown to Steve Yzerman either. Like,
yeah.
If anyone, any fan can realize that there's a bunch of jerseys out there at any given moment, like, and there's some guys who've seen Todd McLellan, Derek Lalonde, and a few that have seen Jeff Blashill. Like, at some point, you got to point the finger at yourself, right? So, I think this is another Todd McLellanism saying, like, I cannot extract anything from these guys because it's just not there.
Yeah, I don't think it was a coded hint to Steve Yzerman so much as like answering the question honestly to everyone watching. Like, you know, it's a message to the team too, but at some point, if it's a lost cause, this is the NHL. You got to produce. Like, this isn't a development league where there's silver linings and you say, okay, but at least we learned this. This is post-Olympic break. You are making a push for the playoffs with limited time left. You can't be wasting minutes out there in key games.
Yeah, we're talking about what, 20-ish games left now. There's no time for the extracting moments out of a loss. It's like, this is the cold and hard truth of where we're at, and we need to do something now and get ourselves in a position to make the playoffs.
And I put it forward pretty bluntly, and I mean, it's not such a binary the way I presented it of like, oh, if you haven't figured it out this season, then you're just gone. There's different contexts, right? Like young players who are really having a hard time figuring it out. Like, you're not just going to...
I don't think that message is to those guys.
No, I think it's meant to spark them as well, but I think more of like Comfer and Rasmussen than I do Casper and Finney. Like, those are very 100%. Different situations.
And I think it's very hard to discern that from the quote, but I would guarantee you McLellan's like, I can develop these guys and I see that they can be NHL players, whereas the other ones, he's like, I can see that they are not NHL players.
Because it gets exhausting. Like, that Carolina game, again, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me. It wasn't a surprise to you. It wasn't a surprise to any of the listeners or the viewers. Like, we all knew what Detroit was walking into. It would have been a miracle had they pulled out a point. And I think that's unfortunate that at this stage in the season, they're still getting beat the same way. But even more than it's unfortunate, it's predictable and it's indicative of the fact of, like Brad said, these boil down to you can't bleed anymore from this stone, and this is just a roster thing. Like, you've distilled it down to what the core issues are, and until you start to work on those via roster turnover or trades or whatever, this is going to be what you're going to get when you're icing those guys with that many minutes. So that's what the Red Wings did. Here's what they have upcoming, and our schedule is going to be a little bit funny. So they have Nashville on the road to end this little mini road trip. That is Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then Wednesday, they play at 7 Eastern in Detroit. We're actually going to be recording early that morning. That's going to be our trade deadline preview episode. That episode's going to be less about game recaps and more about the trade deadline on Friday, March 6th, so that we can get that out to you. And all of this is with a big asterisk of if there's a trade and we have to record an emergency episode, we'll figure it out as we go. And then on Friday, they play the Panthers at home as well. And that's another day where we may be recording on a game day because that's also trade deadline day. And we'll see how the trade deadline goes. And if something big happens, we'll be recording that day for an emergency episode. If not, we'll be back on Sunday. So it's all up in the air. Other Red Wings, or let's call it Griffins notes before we go to break here. Michael Brandsegg-Nygard. He's on a roll. He has found his groove. Last 6 games, he has 7 goals. I'm looking at that and I'm like, man.
How many assists in that time frame?
1.
Yeah, selfish player. Demote him.
That's it. We have Johan Franzen at home. And honestly, kind of close to it with that stat line.
I've never actually thought about it, but not that quick, freakishly strong, wicked shot. There's a lot of lines you can draw from Franzen to MBN.
I've been seeing him roll along, and I'm like, okay, you have to have constant communication down with Dan Watson and the Griffins squad there. But if you think he's found his groove in a way that is settled and he's confident in, and you think he's really changed like materially the way he plays up and down the ice, I'm very open to giving this kid another shot. But if they're like, no, this is the first time we've really felt him to be like comfortable and confident to this degree, and you have to let this play out, then I'm not saying call him up urgently. But if he can get another crack at the bottom 6 of the Red Wings lineup, I wouldn't hate an opportunity for him to try to inject some scoring in there.
Perfect time as the trade deadline rolls around too.
Mm-hmm.
Showcasing himself.
This could be a very...
Hold on. Oh, for the Red Wings. I thought you meant in a... Oh, actually, you know what?
Dealer's choice?
Yeah, depending on how big of a trade we're talking here.
Robert Thomas, MBN, 1-for-1.
Yes. Yeah, we'll take that.
Just look on the production. Like, it's a tough deal for the Red Wings to make, but I think they might have to do it.
If you think Nate Danielson's stock is lower than it should be, MBN stock would be at 7 goals in his last 6 games. There would be a lot of teams looking wide-eyed at that one.
Hey, Carter Bear has also been on a tear. So
yeah,
if we're looking at a Robert Thomas or a Petterson or a Robertson or a Kyrou, it's not the worst thing in the world. Some of these guys are getting hot down in the minors and juniors.
What's worst case scenario? They stay with the Red Wings and they're more assets for the team post-deadline. Okay, we're going to talk trade deadline, but first, a word from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast. Back after this. It's always this time of year, once the playoff push really gets rolling, that my routine gets thrown off. Late games, post-game breakdowns, group chats blowing up. Suddenly it's 10:30 and I haven't eaten anything real. I'm trying to stay consistent, but cooking just isn't happening on nights like that. That's where Tempo has been clutch. They deliver fresh, chef-crafted meals right to your door, and they're fully cooked. 2 minutes in the microwave and you're good. It's actual food. It's properly portioned. It's not just some sad snack that you eat while rewatching a third period collapse. It's a real meal. We recently tried the red pepper chicken breast and the sweet and sour pineapple meatballs, and they were both excellent, and we will be repeating those ones. The chicken had real heat without being overpowering, and the pineapple meatballs hit that sweet and savory balance that I love especially, and it didn't feel heavy at all either. It had high protein, it was balanced without feeling like it was diet food. Tempo rotates in a bunch of new recipes every week, so you're not stuck eating the same thing over and over. Whether you're looking for protein-packed meals like we often are, calorie-conscious options, or just something that keeps you from ordering takeout after a tough loss or a big win, there's flexibility built in. For a limited time, Tempo is offering our listeners 60% off your first box. Go to tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. That's tempomeals.com/wingedwheel for 60% off your first box. tempomeals.com/wingedwheel. Rules and restrictions may apply. All right, picture this. It's preseason, and I'm telling you that at the trade deadline, the Red Wings are the leading contenders to trade for a defenseman from Vancouver. Do you hammer that button or no?
Yes.
You have to.
I'll take those odds.
Yeah, it turns out it's Tyler Myers.
Well, not everything can be a bingo.
No, that mystery box did not contain a boat, but it contain a chaos giraffe.
We always talk about the monkey paw curling. Remember how for years we were begging, if you're going to be bad, at least don't be boring? Well, if there was a perfect way to describe Tyler Myers, the chaos giraffe, he's not good, but he's not boring.
You know how I talk about incremental improvement? I didn't mean at the molecular level. Like you have to point the Hubble telescope at the defensive core to see the incremental gain.
You don't need to look that it's the same. It just goes a little higher.
Is he 6'8"?
Well, he fits the MO that Detroit's looking for from their defensive group.
So I think we need to break this one down into its component parts to make sense. The gist of it is, it's been widely reported and believed that Tyler Myers, who has full trade control as of right now, a full no move, which changes as of this summer.
How does Tyler Myers get a no move?
Vancouver.
It's a great point. My bad.
Yeah, it turns into a 12-team no trade list as of July 1st. But as of right now, he has a full no move clause. So he has control over where he goes. 36 years old, 6'8" right shot defenseman. And it's believed that Vancouver has an offer from the Detroit Red Wings that they like. And they brought it to Tyler Myers and his agent. And as of now, Tyler Myers has not agreed to waive his no move clause to go to Detroit. Now, before we get into that whole discussion, I think it's worth noting that Tyler Myers has a young family, which isn't unique in the NHL, but one of his kids does have cerebral palsy, and he is I understand the want to stay closer to home. There were a few destinations that were reported. This is very obviously like agent and GM negotiating in public kind of thing. That's why this is all out there. Essentially what Tyler Myers is doing right now, as of the time of recording, we could be back here tomorrow because he's decided to waive his no move clause, but he's waiting to see if a more desirable destination either in the same time zone or I think he was born in Houston, Texas. So the Dallas Stars was named as a team that he would prefer to go to, somewhere closer for his family. So I do get that. But as of now, the Red Wings have an offer on the table that the Canucks like, and Tyler Myers has not agreed to waive. That offer is rumored to be, not confirmed, rumored to be in and around a second round pick. All of that said.
Hopefully a round.
Yeah, that'd be nice if it was. Well, hold on. Careful the monkey paw. Second plus.
Yeah, I was going to say that plus is going to start just slowly etching itself into the paper as Evan says it.
I'm going to tell you the way I think about it. First off, I'm going to ignore the second round pick because I think at its core, that's not good value for Tyler Myers, who at this stage in his career is not a good defenseman. There's nuance to it, but let's just put that out there. The Red Wings want help on the right side. We see how they are struggling behind Moritz Seider on the right side. They have ASP, who some nights looks promising, more nights than not as the season goes on, looks like he's way out of his element. The Carolina game was one of many, many examples. And then behind him, they have next to nothing. And they have plenty of bodies, plenty of contracts that should fill that spot.
Jerseys. They have jerseys.
They have jerseys. Not even jerseys.
Not new jerseys.
No, they're Grand Rapids jerseys right now. And so it's bleak. So even though Tyler Myers is at the lowest low of his career, probably, he's not having a good season and he is not good right now. Still technically probably an improvement for the Red Wings. Another year of term at a very affordable, was it $3 million? So that's who cares about that? Yeah, it's complicated. The second is just not good value, but then, the Red Wings have so many assets. And I don't know. It's not sexy for sure.
I understand what you're saying, and I get what you're saying. And
that was a first for me.
I'm going to disagree with you in a sec here. Don't worry. I'm giving you at least a little bit of credit because I think you're on the right mindset for how people should approach this. Because I think no matter how this deadline broke down, there was always going to be the likelihood that the Red Wings were going to slightly overpay for a depth defenseman who's probably not all that good. I don't think anybody's surprised by that because, we always hear all the right things about Yzerman. He's talking about this, he's doing this, he's doing this. And we always circle back to his biggest flaw as a GM. He's just a poor evaluator of talent, especially at defense when it comes to depth players. Like he's made most of his significant mistakes as a GM have been exactly in this Tyler Myers realm that we're dealing in right now. Is a second round pick way too much for Tyler Myers? Yes, absolutely. And I'm saying that as a guy who I don't think there's any sacred cows in this organization right now in terms of getting better. And I'm a big advocate to, we're at the point you can overpay. All I'm asking is do it for good players. They can be depth players. Just because you're a third line or a second pair guy doesn't mean you're bad. I can't make a coherent argument that Tyler Myers is better than Jacob Bernard-Docker at this point. So why are you giving up a second round pick for that? Why are you giving up anything for that? He does bring an element that they do not have, and there is some benefit in that, but he also can't move the puck like those two can, which to me is the more important trait. And I think the Red Wings just keep backing themselves into these corners where they almost get, I don't know, is sticker shock the right word? We're not going to go for the big fish, so we're just going to overpay for someone who's bad. Because we had this exact same conversation with Travis Hamonic where we all agreed, yep, that team needed another defenseman. Another right shot was key. Just why didn't we get anybody good? There were good defensemen still available. Just like this trade deadline. I think Friedge was talking on 32 Thoughts. It's a buyer's market right now because there are so many defensemen available right now. How is this the one you settle on? Well, this is the infuriating part for me. It's always in theory the right idea, the right approach, the right thing, and I agree with it all. And then we land on the wrong player way too often, and here we are again.
So he's called the Chaos Draft because he plays a kind of game that would make Ben Sherratt, when he first got to the Red Wings in his chaotic style, look like Nicholas Lidstrom. Like, he is very, very, very high risk, high reward. He's at
I do respect the mentality.
It's fun.
Yeah,
sure.
but you want that out of like, your number one D-man. It's like, oh yeah, the risk is high because he's walking the blue line trying to dangle guys, but he also puts up 75 points.
The reward is very high at the end of those risks when they hit.
And they used to be. Like, he
oh, great.
57 games, 1 goal, 7 assists. So he's not exactly. It's just, yeah.
My initial reaction was, if the rumored price is a second round pick, is there really no one else in the NHL you could peel away from a team for a second round pick?
Exactly.
Yeah, the notion of overpaying for someone at the deadline with 1 or 2 rounds higher than you should be if you're going to boil it down to just picks, that's not the part that gets me. That's kind of just the name of the game here, and it fluctuates.
My fear is that they narrow it into a player that they want, and they just negotiate with that team, and they're like, "This is what we want." That's how I feel about Hamonic. And Steve Yzerman had quotes saying he liked his game last year, and I think a lot of people were surprised that was said. To me, it feels like, hey, we have all these assets. A second round pick, you should be able to get somebody there should be 16 teams who are interested in a second round pick for 4, 5, 6 defensemen on their team.
And we talked about this with the Olympics, and I think this is kind of the corner Yzerman backs himself into, where we talk about ghost rosters when building a team. We have this set of parameters, how we want our first line, second line, third line, fourth line to look. And then rather than picking the 12 best players, they pick the guys that fit this role the best. I think Yzerman has that archetype of a defenseman. He wants big, he wants high intensity, he wants physical.
Mobile.
And then he backs himself into a corner going, oh, these are the 3 guys that check those boxes, but they suck. And maybe this guy's a little too undersized, but he can move a puck. Oh, maybe this guy's not that physical, but he's a great skater. But nope, we're living in this archetype, and they don't stray from it. And it's just, and I get it. This is coming from a guy who's bitched about the Red Wings failing the punk test for the better part of a decade. Tyler Myers certainly helps that, but this all comes with the asterisk of you have to be good at hockey. The reason Tom Wilson is so valuable isn't because he annihilates people. It's because he annihilates people and is also good at the hockey part. And I think it's just this theory of what we need in a defenseman without realizing that what you're looking for doesn't exist right now in the market.
I'm going to do some devil's advocate just for the sake of fleshing out the whole idea. And I'm going to qualify this with, yeah, my heart is in, I would rather explore other options other than Myers. I'd be open to see how he does, but I'd be very surprised if it was well. But for the sake of the argument, would you rather go into the playoffs with absolutely nothing done, or overpay with an asset that you are flush with either second-round picks or second-round pick equivalent prospects, and just try something? Don't answer with, I want someone else, just like with this in mind.
I feel like that mindset is more desirable or makes more sense for a true contender, where they just move around in the margins a little bit. They're like, this is our core. These guys are contender level players, and we just, pick on these assets, these players every season to try and change our identity a little bit, but push us over the next level. I'm post Olympics, I'm like, go big game hunting, and that's really all I'm interested in. Because if you pay a second for Tyler Myers and still miss the playoffs, which is a very likely possibility given how insane the Atlantic is, and last night was not a good night for Detroit, that is going to hurt.
So is the question, pay a second for Myers or do nothing?
Yeah.
I pick do nothing.
But that's almost a guaranteeing failure, because the Red Wings' right side.
What if you draft a Tyler Myers with that second round pick?
So, but it's the second round pick because again, looking at contention window, and I know the Red Wings are flush with assets. I know you say you can't just pick another player. So for argument's sake, I won't pick another player at this deadline. But the Red Wings should be competing for the next 5 to 10 years. You can save this for a future trade of actual value. If you were telling me we could get Tyler Myers for a 4th round pick and he's going to sit in the press box as the 7th defenseman until someone gets hurt or needs a night off, I'm on board with that. I'm not that against Tyler Myers that I don't want him on this roster at all, but I'm not giving up a 2nd round pick for someone who is not an upgrade on any of the 6 defensemen playing regularly.
He's not
I think he is. There are a lot of nights where the Red Wings don't offer a lot more on the right side.
Nights.
Yeah, but sometimes it's untenable.
He's going to be the same problem.
Very likely that he's going to have a lot of nights as well. I 100% agree.
His problems will look a lot different than ASP's problems, but they will yield the same result.
I think for me, it's just the price. Like, honestly, if it was a 3rd round pick, and that very well could be the deal. Like a 3rd round pick, like, the chances of nabbing a bona fide NHLer with that are very, very low. That gets me a little bit more interested.
And also,
if it ends up being a 2nd is what this all hinges on. It's not confirmed, right? Like,
yeah. And also, I should say, because you rightly mentioned this at the top, and I think it is worth mentioning. If I'm Steve Yzerman and I'm the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, and I'm hearing from the other end of this negotiations, hey, he's got this young family, his son's got cerebral palsy, he doesn't want to move, I am no longer pursuing that. I am shifting to plan B, because even if he comes now and we get the player, I have a hard time believing his heart's going to be fully in it, because like being away from your family for that long sucks. And if he did it almost against his will, like you talked him into it, you dragged him here, I have a hard time seeing that being a situation where a player can thrive. 1, from a human being standpoint, you don't want to do that to a guy. And 2, from a performance standpoint, I can't see a guy with that type of distraction on his mind performing to 100% of his ability.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a Detroit thing, right? I don't think he's like,
Correct.
Oh, I don't want to go to Detroit. Why would I go there? They stink. It's a family and a life situation that he has that he's exercising his no move to stay in Vancouver, and I fully respect that.
We've seen a lot of times where the league and different GMs will pressure a player who has a no move into just accepting a deal they have on the table.
You can just say the Rangers.
The Rangers, yeah. Sharks have been participants in that, but this one I kind of wonder whether, and I'm being stupid by putting this out there because this will probably be expired by the time you're listening to this, but I wonder if Myers doesn't hang on to the no move and just say, nope, if it's not the right fit, I'm not saying yes right now. Yeah, as of July 1st, I think it's 20 other teams he can be traded to without any protection. He has a 12-team no trade list, but he has another year of term, so why would you guarantee that you're going somewhere that is too far away and uprooting your family? And at the very least, like, moving in the summer is way different than moving in season. It's way more disruptive. So
exactly. He loses. Right now, he's got the one good thing, which is full control. So if he talks to his family and goes, okay, Dallas or whoever has an offer on the table, we can uproot our family. We just move there and we're there for a while. Or you risk it and wait to the summer, and all of a sudden you got 20 teams. So you lose the control, but you have a full summer to move, adapt, acclimate, and then it's not so, because the trade deadline for players is chaotic.
yeah.
So having a full summer would at least make a crappy transition a lot easier.
I think to wrap up the Myers part, the one area where we actually differ is like, the offer on the table is not confirmed, but let's assume it's a second. We all agree that's an overpay. But that aside, I actually do think he is microscopic, Hubble telescope needed to see it, an improvement over what the Red Wings are putting out on the right side down the lineup. I think he can be not steady the way you want full steadiness, but down the Red Wings defensive lineup, he is still a net improvement, and that is that is way more of an indictment on the Red Wings defensive core than it is a celebration of what Tyler Myers is doing at age 36 at this stage in his career. So that's about as generous of an interpretation as you can give it. I'm not crazy about spending on that, but if this ends up being one of multiple moves and you go big game hunting and you do other things, then yeah, great. Who cares? Then it's like, okay, we loaded up everywhere but defense. This is one move we had to just throw a dart at the dartboard. But that's like,
hey, if he's coming, throw Petterson and DeBrincat on the plane. We'll figure out the rest later.
Yeah. I had two different people actually, and a third person just very normally asked me. But the first two people who texted me just texted me in all caps, Tyler Myers, like the almost identical text, two completely different people, just saying Tyler Myers. Like,
we know, we've been down this path.
Yeah,
we've been hurt before. We know how this goes.
Other Vancouver rumors. Evan.
I already saw my Twitter mentions the past couple of days. So continue, say what you gotta say.
Do you think every time Elias Pettersson's trending on Twitter, the next trend below it is at Hockeytown Evan from everybody tweeting him?
It's got to be.
It's linked for sure.
So there were a couple of reports. Elliot Friedman has said that it seems quiet on Elias Pettersson overall, and that the Canucks are dead set on not retaining on his $11.6 million contract with infinity years left on it. And Bruce Garriock reported that he thinks the Red Wings have been all over Pettersson, and that they believe that, with the Swedes and the history of Swedish players performing really well in Detroit, they think they can unlock something in him, be the fresh start that he needs. So I think where I land is that, like, I think the Red Wings have been checking in on the Pettersson situation for a while now. Like, this isn't a new thing with Pettersson, whether he might be traded or not. Would I call it likely that anything happens? I don't know. I think that the length of the contract remaining, what we've been talking about the past 100 episodes, it feels like, to Evan's dismay of, like, there's no rush, and if Vancouver doesn't want to retain, then that might be a moot point. I could 100% see the thesis of it working in Detroit, especially if you are lacking the offensive firepower, but that's not even the conversation here. Is if if Vancouver wants as much as they want and they're not willing to retain, then it doesn't seem like the pressures exist to force that trade to happen now.
And I feel like you guys are definitely more online with this than I am, but it feels like there is absolutely no noise around other teams being involved on a Pettersson deal. So it just feels like this is a cold asset and they're set on not retaining. So teams are like, we're not interested. Yeah. I haven't heard any other team be involved.
not to any kind of appreciable degree. It could happen, and that'll be probably the funniest day in podcast history.
I'm not doing an emergency episode if
Brother, we're gonna do it in your living room if we have to.
You're gonna hear a lot of Sully grunts.
You and Sully.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be a lot of full diapers in that episode outside of your.
I'm gonna have a poopy pants diaper. That is for sure. I'll have a blowout. That's for sure.
But yeah, with the whole Petterson thing, I think it's not like, I think the truth is the Red Wings have been interested, but I also think Evan's 100% right. This is a cold asset right now. Things can change with one phone call, 100%. That's the way the NHL goes. But
if the Red Wings were smart and they know they're probably one of the few teams calling, they're probably taking the approach of, if we're taking full cap hit, we're probably giving you next to nothing for him. We'll give you a good asset. We'll give you a really good return, but you're retaining however much amount.
Yeah.
And they're probably playing both angles right now.
Congrats, you're taking JT Compher back and a little bit off of the return. Like, there's ways to do it for sure.
Yeah.
Here's Michael Rasmussen. Hey, Rutherford, you said you wanted more Canadians. This is a homegrown boy. I think Rutherford would be ripe to overpay for Michael Rasmussen. All right, we're done harassing Evan about Petterson until the emergency episode in his living room. Robert Thomas. Those rumors seem to be heating up, not necessarily in a Red Wings direction. It has been reported that it seems to be more likely now than it ever has been that he's going to be moved at the deadline, and Utah has been the name that's been coming out as the team who has been very, very interested. Obviously, the connection with Armstrong, and that's going to be a fun one to watch until if it doesn't end up being the Red Wings, then it's going to be an infuriating one. Reminder that Robert Thomas has trade protection and he can control his destiny, but if the Red Wings get outbid,
yeah, but if he has trade protection, to me that may signal he just doesn't want to go to Detroit.
Could be, right? Like, until we know that, there's just no way to know.
But at this point too, be a salesman. Like, convince the guy.
Patrick Kane's on the horn with Panarin. It's just another phone call.
Like, the Red Wings for years and years and years, we could always sit here and go, like, there's no way they're talking guys into coming here because they were a joke of a team with no cap space and yada. They're in a playoff spot. They're young. They're primed to be good for a while. You should be able to talk guys into coming to this team now. Like, this is no longer I'm not going to Detroit, and that's the end of the conversation. For agency, sure, that's a whole nother thing. But if St. Louis is sitting there going, Detroit's giving us the best offer, Steve, here's his agent, here's Robert, pick up the phone, do what you have to do because we want to make this deal. You know, sometimes no matter what you do, it's not going to work. But if it happens, I'm getting so sick of just didn't want to go to Detroit, didn't want to go to Detroit, didn't want to go to Detroit.
I think for me, the Utah being a likely landing spot is almost worst case scenario other than an Atlantic team because Ryan Smith will be smooth talking Robert Thomas.
Oh yeah.
He's the type of guy who wants to make sure every player is set up for success and anything that they need, he'll take care of. And he's so hands-on in a strong way and so enthusiastic about the Mammoth and Utah hockey. So that's not good for me because he is an excellent salesman.
I should say this is still a positive thing. One, the Red Wings have the asset of an amazing facility with the LCA.
Oh, yeah,
Red Wings
for sure.
Have excellent facilities. And two, if you could pick anything, it's more likely that Robert Thomas is going to shake loose and be traded at all because it's an opportunity to get him, right? Like, Utah's been the name that's out there, but it doesn't mean they are one of many teams who are interested in him, and things can change, right? So this could be St. Louis putting pressure on the other teams to say, hey, Utah's in the lead, right? And so they leak that to the insiders, and that's what gets reported. So all in all, I'm taking an optimistic view of this. We've been talking, out the wazoo about Robert Thomas, go trade for him. And all those conversations ended with, St. Louis doesn't have to trade him right now. So is it likely that they even move him at the deadline rather than the offseason or in another season? Probably not. If he gets dealt, that is a plus. That is opportunity. It's chaos. It's an opportunity to capitalize. So all eyes are on that one. That is easily the most important situation for the Red Wings to be paying attention to. And that's one that you're hoping that they are, barring something happening behind the scenes where there's trade control involved or just no interest, you're going balls to the wall for that player. Just that is the perfect player for what the Red Wings want at forward, productive, both ends of the ice, $8.125 million cap hit for many more seasons, and he's only 31 years old at expiry. That is the perfect situation.
Yeah, if the offer that he gets from Utah is anything less than 5 first-round value, there's no reason Detroit shouldn't outbid. Like, that's the thing. Again, no move clause might end up being the undoing, but man, this is just too perfect of a situation and too perfect of a fit for where the Red Wings are to not make this happen by any means necessary. Robert, we'll build you a house next to the arena if we have to, please.
There already was one. It burned down.
Hey, I know something we can build there. Other names that are out there, and this is one like that the Red Wings have been linked to forever, is Vincent Trocheck. I still think that's one that they would like to try to work out if they can. Obviously,
Dylan better have been doing some selling on that at the Olympics.
He was already in the Minnesota team picture. Move on.
I think what Dylan had Bill Guerin on his shoulders at a party. He should have pulled Guerin down and said, if you don't want to be, what wrestling move would you do? Like power drive into the floor right now, you back off Vincent Trocheck. He's coming to Detroit. And it's not even just the Larkin Trocheck connection. It's also the Red Wings, the year they got Andrew Kopp, Trocheck was their target. He ended up choosing New York, but Trocheck was their target in free agency. And so they've wanted him for a long time. So if they can work that one out, I think Trocheck is still very much in their sights. They're a team in the East, which I know Trocheck prioritizes in terms of wanting to stay out there. So we'll see. Another Rangers player, though, who from the moment they announced the Team USA roster, we kind of started to think what's going to happen. Adam Fox.
Yes, please.
The day before it came out where Adam Fox was asked about his want to stay in New York, and his answer was essentially saying, I'm not answering that very loaded question until the offseason, and by that, I want out, and we're going to talk about it in the offseason. The day before that happened, I got word that Adam Fox wants out of New York, and that's pretty much the indication right now. I think that's why the question was asked of him, is that notion's going around. Adam Fox, 28 years old, right shot defenseman, still a stellar player for the New York Rangers, even though he's been maligned. A lot of players on that team have been. $9.5 million through 2029. That is a contract. He expires at 31. That's another phenomenal player you can add. Would cost a pretty penny, but worth going after.
This feels like one of those situations where you didn't even need insider info to piece this one together.
No, you could see it coming from
star player, team going tail spinning into a rebuild, coach and GM who just left you off the Olympic team. Player got injured and then replaced that defenseman with another player who wasn't you.
Coach called you a milk drinker in front of everyone.
Yeah. I'm not a gambling man, but if I was able to put money on, is Adam Fox going to demand a trade someday? I'd have put my life savings on that one.
And he has a no move clause, so he controls the situation. Yeah, you'd have to hope that the Red Wings are a desirable target, but again,
well, we can at least rule out Carolina and Calgary.
Yeah, that's right. Can you imagine he demands to go back to Calgary? How funny that would be. I know they weren't teammates, but Dylan could say, hey, man,
they were last year.
If I know anything about U.S. Olympic snubs, we've got Alex DeBrincat on our team, so you guys can hash it out as a little support group.
And we'll bring in Jason Robertson as well.
Yes.
So all eyes on Fox, although that one's not a more immediate situation either. There's so many names out there. I think this is what the trade deadline preview is for, but still, how funny is the Sherwood situation in San Jose? You deal 2 seconds for him, and it might be that because of how your team has played and the fact that you aren't seeing eye to eye on a contract situation, you might have to flip him.
Worked out for Rantanen in Carolina, so why not?
Yeah, even then,
you use that second on Tyler Myers.
You're not getting 2 seconds for him though at this point.
No,
that's the trick. Rantanen's value stayed high. Sherwood's is falling by the day.
Is it though? Because it's still like I think a lot of people will still be looking at the performance, what they know he can do. They're not going to really assign San Jose's performance to him, and the $1.5 million cap hit will be seen as so desirable, especially for like the Colorados and the Tampa Bays, the Carolinas of the world. Like, I think I could see them getting still quite a bit from him. I don't think they're going to be surpassing the 2 seconds. That'd be impressive if they did, but still.
Feels like you'd be bailing out Mike Greer if you gave 2 seconds. Feels like San Jose should take a bit of a hit on the asset front for this because you know it's a bad situation and that it's not working out there. So, yeah, this feels more like a contender type player. Like you said, the cap hit is nothing. So the Colorados, the Dallases, the Minnesotas, they can just inject him down the lineup and the pick means nothing to them.
At one point not too long ago, I implied that Mike Greer was making some weird, maybe not optimal moves as a GM, and then he went on a run of just fleecing everyone and making great moves, including the Red Wings. And so I would like to see him make one mistake again. That'd be pretty cool, just so that I can feel a little bit better about that.
Yes, the pendulum swings back the other way.
One more name I'm just going to put out there. Kent Johnson, scratched in Columbus the other night. Could be someone to keep your eye on.
Yes, please. That's a reclamation project I have a lot of time for.
Okay, that is a lot of trade rumor talk. We're going to take a quick break, and when we're back, the final segment on this episode of the Win Real podcast back after this.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. If you want to support the show, join the Dub Club. You get access to benefits like our bonus overtime episodes. They record right after these main ones. We let loose. We have fun. We answer any questions that didn't make the main show. You get a completely unhinged Evan most of the time, and it's a good time. Also, bloopers, outtakes. They're a lot of fun. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. Plus, you have a chance to enter yourself into giveaways for 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game going directly to our patrons. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Let's take some questions from our patrons. Large Thorzel says, I'd rather see a top 6 forward over an improvement on 7th D at the trade deadline. I've been thinking, how about Luke Evangelista? The Nashville winger had a contentious contract dispute with the Preds and held out, eventually signed a 2-year deal. While not being the prolific scorer, he has a very nice knack of finding others in scoring positions. If Nashville loses a few and are further away before the deadline, what do you think he would cost, and what do you think of the player? Nashville's kind of...
They're hanging around right now.
Yeah. I don't know that they're keen to do that.
Yeah, you'd never know. Some teams, this might be one of those situations where if the offer's too good to say no, Nashville would do it. But I don't know if Evangelista is the guy that you're giving an offer of, it's too good, you can't say no. And I like Evangelista a lot. He's a guy I'd be on board with.
44 points this year.
I like Evangelista a lot. But that being said, I agree with Large that I still think forward is the biggest need on this team. They need scores. And I would bet McLellan's jerseys comment is almost entirely directed at the forwards.
Yeah, because I think they know what the case is on defense, right?
Yeah.
Like with ASP and everything.
Yeah, Nashville will be interesting to watch. Like, they're hanging around the playoffs, so are they going to make a push? Like, they certainly have some decent players that they could, and if Saros turns into Olympic Saros, they definitely have the opportunity, but they got a lot of interesting pieces. I'm sure teams will be interested in Stamkos. I'm sure there's teams interested in Ryan O'Reilly. Like, he's once again having a great season, former Conn Smythe winner. Like, you put him on 2C, 3C, like, your center depth is insane.
Works for Toronto.
Well, nothing seems to work for Toronto, so that's a cherry-picked example.
Imagine the Toronto Maple Leafs somehow feel worse right now than they have in any of their other recent seasons. Like, that team's a joke right now.
Probably sellers at the deadline.
The Jack Scientist says, could we see an internal promotion around the deadline if Stevie doesn't make a move, i.e. Carter Mazur with hopefully more success? That's assuming health, I suppose. I know you don't mess with Costa when he's hot, but at what point does he at least equal Talbot's game but benefit from the experience more? I'll also add in personally guys like we talked about MBN, whatever other forward, maybe Nate Danielson, another shot. Who do you like? Leonard, maybe slots up. All of this is pending health of these guys. Like, you're impressed how so many different Griffins are doing trial max, et cetera. We watch the Olympics. It's a very viable option. When you have an organization this deep, it does mean that our deadline acquisition was some guy that we made room for isn't an insane thing to say, for sure.
Yeah.
If you told me that, like, I'll just say JT Compher got moved out in a deal for a defenseman, which allowed John Leonard to be full-time in the bottom six.
Great.
Cool. I'm great. That sounds good to me.
I just think the Red Wings are in a weird position where unless these guys coming up, Leonard, MBN, are, I'm going to call it impactful enough upgrades, I don't think they want to take them away from a Grand Rapids potential championship run. Like if MBN is going to be 5% better than what Rasmussen or Compher are doing right now, I'd rather him get the experience of going on a potential championship run with Grand Rapids. If he's going to be 20% better than those guys, I screw Grand Rapids, get him up here. We need to make the playoffs. So it all depends on how you feel about that assessment of these players at the moment.
Fanny the Pooh says, at what point is Detroit seriously prioritizing a second line right wing? Can someone in the system realistically step up in that role next year? Kane looks pretty done at 5-on-5, especially for playoff hockey.
Speaking of MBN.
Yeah, I don't think they haven't thought about it. I think it's just they've always kind of wanted a top six forward, and that could have been...
Doesn't Jordan Kyrous shoot right?
Yes, he does.
Oh, interesting.
Bring him over with his buddy Robert. I think. Buddies. I'm not sure. There's always a lot of noise about what goes on in that room. I don't really know those dynamics.
It feels like we need to free one of them of that dynamic.
At least one. Evans RBF says, is it time to trade Talbot and bring up Cossa? Grateful Gibby is playing amazing, but we need a solid backup. Talbot's time is done. So here's my thing. Talbot has had a really rough run, especially the results haven't been there. He's always kind of been a goalie who does better when he's in a groove, and I think he's suffered by virtue of Gibson just owning that net and going on such an insanely hot streak. He hasn't had the opportunity to get in a groove. When you're trying to do what Detroit's doing, I think you almost want that card in your hand still with Talbot. If it turns to be catastrophic, then sure, you have Cossa there, but I don't think you do it for nothing.
And I know the Red Wings are in a playoff push right now, and that's all we've been talking about. That's all the fans have been talking about. But this is still a situation where you can't get too far over your skis. Again, what the Griffins are doing is massively relevant. They are in first place, already clinched a playoff spot, should be going on a deep playoff run. That is absolutely something Sebastian Cossa has to do as a starter. He has to run the full season. There's, 22 games left or something like that for the Red Wings? I don't need Cossa playing 4 games up there. I need him playing meaningful playoff games in Grand Rapids. That's better for the future of him. That's better for the future of the organization. And Cam Talbot's not a big enough disaster that you can't at least trust him for 5 to 8 games. Like, he's not going to be great, but he's also probably not going to single-handedly cost you the games either. So if he was playing at the level of a James Reimer at the height of his meme status, then yeah, you probably got to make some desperate decisions, but Talbot's not that bad that you have to start worrying about it.
There are a lot of comments talking about bringing up reinforcements from Grand Rapids, whether it's MBN, Leonard, Danielson, etc. Adam Erningslander asked about that. It's Cressens asked about that. It's a very big theme right now. So.
Yeah, again, only if they are so substantial of an upgrade, it's worth losing the playoff run in Grand Rapids. Because if you're bringing MBN up, it's not for 5 games. He is here to be here. So everything kind of has to be looked at from both angles.
Brad's #1 fan says the amount of negative comments on your socials about the Myers rumor were hilarious when tons of people were in favor of Stanley last month. They're basically the same guy in different fonts. I blame Ryan, LOL. Yeah, I'll take the heat on that one. I admittedly,
no.
When I was talking about Stanley, I wasn't thinking about a second-round pick in return.
Fair, but also Tyler Myers never knocked out a Tkachuk.
That's the whole thing.
Him and Edvinsson are going to play together.
I will give
Matthew
up
and Brady at the same time.
Second round pick for Logan Stanley sounds awful. Second round pick for a Tkachuk killer. Sign me up.
Go. Just make them shake in their boots every time they play the Red Wings. Yeah, I mean, we even talked about Logan Stanley, I think it was last episode, the episode before, of like, it's gotten a bit much in terms of what I thought this is going to be. Like, if they bring him in, it's a very depth piece for a depth piece kind of deal. But
yeah, 3rd round pick for a 7th defenseman who's got some size and snarl, fine. But that is not the rumored asking price right now.
Matt says, our season has ended 2 years in a row after the final meeting against Montreal, so mark March 19th on your calendars as the date of destiny and pray to whatever God will accept us, boys.
Wait, isn't that like right before Wingwheel Podcast night?
Right before Wingwheel Podcast night.
Oh no.
The theme of this episode is we've been hurt before.
Yes. I was even thinking about it when we were talking about the standings a bit. I hate how much the Red Wings have burned us to the point they've made us this paranoid, because we are not nearly capitalizing enough on the fact that the Red Wings are over 75% to make the playoffs and the Leafs are like, what is it, minus 2,000 to miss the playoffs? Like, this is our ultimate timeline. It's not enough that we succeed. They should fail. Both are happening to this point, and we can't properly capitalize on it because we are too paranoid.
78% as of right now on Money Puck, and that's after the Carolina
God, it just doesn't
loss.
feel like that.
No. It's like you knew as you were watching that score run up for Carolina last night, you check in on the other scores. Of course, Buffalo's winning big. Of course, Montreal's winning big. Like, that's just how the Atlantic is going this year. Until we see it. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we're back, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Wing Reel Podcast back after this. All right, thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you as always as we approach the trade deadline for understanding the wild nature of our schedule potentially. So we plan on being back sometime Wednesday with our trade deadline preview episode. All of that remains to be seen. Tyler Myers could change that. Steve Yzerman could change that. Hopefully Robert Thomas could change that, but we'll see how it goes. But for now, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast. Thank you to all of our patrons. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. Again, if you want to join the Dub Dub Club and get all those great benefits. And if you want to help us out and support us, but Patreon's not for you, that's totally okay. There are other ways that you can really help us. Wherever you're getting this podcast, if you can subscribe, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a rating or review, the thumbs up, the stars, a heart, a like, share the show with a friend, writing the review. Those all help us out a ton. And to our name level supporters on Patreon, we cannot thank you enough. Arjun Shanker, Aikfer, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Klaus Sorensen, Glenn Brabham, Rain Dano, Below Average Ball Hockey Goalie, Matthew M. Rice, Darb EQ, Sea Lion, Detroit Style, Deep Dish Cider, Bengo Bango, Hassam Al-Qassem, Asher Killian, Kaylin Wood, Alex Toger, That's What I Appreciate About You, Derek Enstam, Matt McKay, Andy Hardcore, Sam Bankson, Citizen High Five, Aaron Hudson, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, The El Cacho, Stephen Ortlieb, Jonathan Miller, Give Blood Fight Probert, DJ Denton, Carl, Britannia Nanalewski, Raul Pudd, Jay Gollum, Settlers of Catan Stan, John Engels, Alex Benilla, CB55, Connor Scovey, Adam Zuiza, Adam Rose, Denny's Gamer Girl, Drinking Baileys from a Shoe, Hockeytown Matt, Mr. Koozie, Chaotic Monkey, Craig Kibble, Iserplan Stan, Clip Clop Nene, Podgy713, Unapologetic Gibson Truther, Griffin Not from Grand Rapids, Winter Knight, Marty, Kazi the OG13, Jeff Pridemore, Eric Hill, Butts Carlton, Best James Bond, Beer League Legend, Alec, Mark Hernandez, Slim Smitty Cards, Grand Rapids Girly, Anna Sleeman, William, Mike Asher, August, Brian Munn, Improved But Flawed, Chris 99 Jones, Trevor Centerfit, Adams Red Wings Takes, Kurt Chin, Adam Ernie Slander, Tkachuk Brothers, Elephant Walk to Church, Daniel Morosky, Logan Stull, Colin White, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Quaz, Dylan Larkin Trade Sacrifice, Antonio Gracias, Banana is Larger, Matt Keeler, Linda Hull, Connor Layton, Good Cop Brad Cop, Josh Yelton, Brad Simmons, Darren Fick, Bex, The Hodag, I'd Rather Be Partying in Vegas with Flavor Flav, 200-Foot High Compete, Max a Million, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheeseback Space Force, Sandin-Pellikka's Pet Pelican, Griffey Boy, JM Rhapsody, Frank Stanley, Rosie Posey, That Other Guy, Pucking Puck Puck, Tom Iserplan Respector, Carl Thames, Nerno, The Hat 123, Stephen A. Aaron, Corey Prida, All Motor No Hands, Gene Sullivan, Stinky Britches, James Pridemore, Upernadian, Drop the Puck, Eric Nance, and Stanislavski, Jim Bellingham Massiballs, Peter Swanson, Wings fan of St. Louis Scott, Lucas Raitmond, Cops, Bubba Gump Lip, Trent Thorough, Grepsky, Evan Beckner, C.E. Hayes, Finny to the Rafters, Jacob Marsh, Falkness, Fight Night at the Joe, Axel's Sandy Pelican, Finny the Pooh, I'm Evan, you're Evan, we're all Evan, Richard Wasmith, brand new name level supporter. Welcome, Richard, to the Dub Dub Club. Cassidy Hart, Lion L. Johnson, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the Dub Dub Club. And we cannot thank you all enough, including your second favorite patron. Appreciate you all. We'll see you for the trade deadline preview, unless there's an emergency episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.